Hey guys, my name is Sam, and today we're going to be talking about a company that has recently caught my attention. This company is called Polestar, and they're getting ready to merge with a company called GGPI to take the company public through the SPAC method. In this scenario, we have to ask whether or not Polestar is a company that might be worth investing in. And before we continue with anything, I have to mention that this is not financial advice and should be considered entertainment. I am not a financial advisor, and you should do your own research. Additionally, I do hold shares of GGPI as well as Tesla, which are both companies that will be mentioned today. So a bit of history, all this was kind of new to me as I looked into Polestar. They started out as a racing company and they were acquired by Volvo. And after they were acquired, they started to work on manufacturing vehicles. By extension of being owned by Volvo, they were also owned by Geely Motors. So in pretty quick succession, they announced the Polestar 1 and 2, and then started deliveries last year. This year, they've increased some of their deliveries, and the merger with GGPI was announced. So the next thing is I took this slide from their presentation by Polestar, and it maps out their current plans to have 5 cars in production by 2024. This is a pretty impressive timeline, and if they can meet these expectations, this company will be a pretty big player in the market. So we currently have the Polestar 2 in production, and they have 2 different models right now for the Polestar 2, one with a single motor and one with dual motors. So I assume the lighter weight of the single motor contributes to the longer range on that vehicle. Um, and then you can see the different price points of the vehicles that are coming up. They listed it as Porsche models instead of dollar amounts, but I looked up the price points for each of these vehicles, so you can see that on the screen. Polestar is targeting 370 miles or more of range on these new cars. There are actually very few vehicles on the market right now with over 300 miles of range, and the majority of them are made by Tesla. So if we look at the competitors that are just starting out right now, such as Lucid, in the same time frame that Lucid is attempting to have 2 models ready, Polestar is already going to have 5. So if Polestar can deliver on this promise, then they will be very well positioned to be a market leader. So when we evaluate new EV companies, the number of car deliveries highly correlates with higher market cap. Tesla is a great benchmark for this idea. Over the years, Tesla has consistently gained ground on both market cap and deliveries. So their consistent record on increasing EV deliveries year over year makes it more likely that they will meet expectations. So we can also look at Rivian and Lucid. They actually present quite the opposite picture. Uh, they have 3 and 5 times the market cap of Polestar with the fraction of the deliveries that Polestar has made. So there's 2 different ways to think about this. The first is that both Rivian and Lucid are extremely overvalued and just simply do not deserve their current market cap. The second is that the current market sentiment towards new EV companies is what's driving the valuation. This is why if we look at a traditional car maker such as GM, we can see that even with very many EV deliveries, they're just not valued as much. And this is even in consideration with all of their other sales of gas-powered, diesel-powered vehicles. So we can take a look at where Polestar is right now. They've had a solid 10,000 deliveries in 2020, and they're expected to triple that in 2021, even beating out GM on EV deliveries. While Polestar is a brand new company just like Rivian and Lucid, what they say about how many cars they will deliver in 2022 is probably more reliable since they are owned by both Volvo and Geely, both brands that know how to make and deliver a car on a timeline. For people who don't know, Geely sold 2.4 million cars in China in 2020 and owns or controls brands such as Volvo, Lotus, London Taxi Company, and many other regional brands. So we can take a look at some of the numbers to compare some of the big names that are focused on just EVs. Clearly, market sentiment is driving the valuation here. The market is accepting inflated value that Rivian and Lucid are projecting for themselves. On the other hand, Polestar is not only backing up their current value with deliveries, it is much more likely that they'll be able to hit and surpass their targets since they have both Volvo and Geely backing their manufacturing with experience and factories. So if market sentiment begins to drive Polestar values, then we should be able to expect the stock price to increase dramatically. So now that we've looked at some of the numbers, we can look at what Polestar is doing. So they're going to be using a factory next year owned by Volvo to begin production of the Polestar 3, in addition to the factory in Chengdu, China, whereas Rivian and Lucid only have one factory each, only in the US. And since we're talking about EVs, we do have to compare the Polestar 2 against its competition. So here are some of the names that come to mind when I'm thinking about EVs. If I missed any, you can let me know in the comments below. So the most obvious competitor is Tesla. We can see that Tesla is going to cost $10,000 more than the Polestar since it doesn't get the federal tax credit anymore. The Tesla has better range, but Polestar is starting out right now. So as they continue development, I'm sure they will be able to match the range on the Model 3. The Chevy Bolt is cheaper, but unfortunately they had a big problem with some battery fires recently. I think they really ruined their reputation at this point. Then we have the Rivian truck and the obscenely priced Lucid Air. As you take a look at this chart, I watched a few videos where Sandy Munro talked about the Polestar 2 design as well as some of the engineering of the vehicle. I think his assessment of the vehicle is a good place to look when we're thinking about whether or not Polestar is going to be able to compete. I'll put a link to his series of videos in the description below. One of the most important factors when selling a car is going to be the look and finish on the car, what the customer sees. And I think Polestar is actually nailing it, and Tesla is well on its way there. And then you can see other cars like the VW ID4. And if you look at the vehicle, it's actually pretty uninspiring, kind of plain. Don't really like the look. We also have non-competitors like Toyota, a company that's still saying that hybrids are the way to go, even as governments all around the world are searching for the end date to the gas engine. So if you look at these charts, we can see that Polestar 2 is actually in a good position to compete. So there are actually a huge number of EV companies trying to grab some market share right now, but really there's only two pure play EV companies that are out there. Companies that are completely focused on electric vehicles. And that's Tesla and Polestar that are actually global. So I don't expect this to be a two-horse race, but being at the front in the beginning actually should count for something. And also, many of the other companies that are on this list that are just pure EV companies that don't have a current global reach, they don't really have the ability to look to an established car manufacturer or to use an existing factory. Tesla has gone the route of building their own factories, but Polestar is looking to leverage existing factories from both Volvo and Geely. So you can see Tesla is all over the world, North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, and the Middle East. And then you can see Polestar they have a good portion of North America, some parts of Europe, and China. So you can compare the reach of the two companies so far. And this is why I think Polestar is a good buy at the moment. You can see a lot more information about the vehicle and how the company has built their product to compete against Tesla. I hope you found this information interesting, and if you want to see more, I hope you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.